Hi, I'm Becca and this is Kate and we're from Sutton Schoolswork, and today we're going to do something a bit Christmassy.
So before we get started, I think this is a super important video and really special, so I think we should make it feel a little bit more Christmassy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right, that would be great.
Yeah? Okay, so after three. 1, 2, 3.
But anyway, Christmas is a really important time for Christians, and so we thought it'd be great to be able to share some of why that's important to us with you. Now, the Nativity is a story you might have heard before, and you might think, what on earth do I not know about this? But today, live on your screens, we're coming to you to tell you maybe some stuff that you didn't know. We're going to have loads of fun, it's going to be super interactive, and hopefully you'll even learn something. As we said before, we're on your screens because we can't be with you in person, but we hope you enjoy this video and you still get lots from it.
Amazing. So before we get started, we want to reiterate the fact that Christmas isn't celebrated by everyone, but there are all kinds of celebrations celebrated by different faiths and different people at this time of year. So for example, you've got Diwali, which is a Hindu festival. You've got winter solstice, which is celebrated by the pagans. And you've also got Hanukkah, which is celebrated by the Jewish. So it shows that all of those things can hold so much significance for those groups of people, and that they choose to celebrate that at that time of year, which is amazing. But as you know, Sutton Schoolswork is a Christian charity. So we're going to be concentrating on what Christmas means for Christians.
So to get us started and to have a little bit of fun, we thought we'd do a Christmas quiz. We're going to be talking about the story that's found in the Bible. You might already know the story, you might think that you'll get all the answers right, or you might have never even heard it before. Don't worry. But we're going to put some questions up on the screen and you can play along with the video, or you can play along with the worksheet that's attached in the description below. It's up to you. We'll read out the questions, we'll give you 10 seconds to work out what the answer is, and then we'll tell you the answer.
Awesome, yeah, so as each question comes along, spend that time either talking to your friends or on your own, however you would like to do it. The questions start off a little bit easier, but do not worry if you don't know the question. You can ask someone around you or just take a guess.
Number 1. The angel was called Gabriel. Well done if you got that answer correct. In the Bible, it doesn't always tell us the name of the angels that appear to different people, but in this case, we are told that he's called Gabriel.
Question number 2. And if you said myth, you are correct. You might be surprised to know that the Bible doesn't say anything at all about a donkey. All it does say is that Mary travelled to Bethlehem. Well done if you got that one right.
Number 3. Jesus wasn't necessarily born on the 25th of December. It's a myth. You see, because it was over 2,000 years ago now, and because birth records were not kept in the same way as they're kept now, we have no specific date for the day that Jesus was born. We just kind of know the year because we're told about a census that happens at the same time. The 25th of December was picked as a date for us to be able to celebrate.
Number 4. Again, if you said myth, again you are correct. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that there were 3 wise men. It does say that there were 3 gifts, And a little spoiler there, that's about the next question as a heads up. But it doesn't say anything about there being just 3 wise men.
Number 5. The 3 gifts that the wise men brought were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These 3 gifts aren't just weird gifts to give a baby, they actually have some symbolism. Gold because Jesus is going to be a king. Frankincense because Jesus is a priest or the high priest. And lastly, myrrh. Myrrh is something that you'd embalm dead bodies with. And that was because part of what Jesus was going to do in his mission on earth was die and come back from the dead.
So we hope you enjoyed that quiz and it gave you a little taster as to what's to come. So next, Becca and I are going to tell you the story in a slightly different and exciting way. However, if you did want to read the Christmas story for yourself in the Bible, you can find it in 2 places. In the book of Matthew, in chapter 1 and 2, and also the book of Luke, just in chapter 2. So let's get into it, and we really hope you enjoy it. So before we get started, there's a few people that you should meet.
First of all, you've got Mary. She is a Jewish girl and she lives in a town called Nazareth. And you've got Joseph. He's Mary's fiance, he's a carpenter, and he's also Jewish. You've got Jesus. The start of the story, Jesus isn't even born yet, but we'll get to meet him super soon. You've got the angel Gabriel. He's a messenger from God. You've got a bunch of shepherds. They're pretty smelly and they look after some sheep. And we've got some wise men. They're foreigners from a faraway land and they're super, super into stargazing.
So, to set the scene for you, about 2,000 years ago, in a town called Nazareth, which is a town in Israel, Mary and Joseph were both from this place. But for the census that was going to take place, they had to return to the hometown of their ancestors. So for both Mary and Joseph, that place was Bethlehem. Now, whilst they were still in Nazareth, Mary was approached by an angel called Gabriel.
Hang on a second. Okay, I don't know about you, but when I picture an angel in my head, I often picture someone with like a cute little halo, white dress, looking pretty cute, maybe some airy fairy wings, like you might see in a school nativity or in a costume. In the Bible, angels are never described like that. They're actually pretty different. In fact, they're like 6 foot and absolutely terrifying. Did you know there's times in the Bible where we meet angels that have more than 2 eyes, who have a whole bunch of limbs that humans don't have, and they might even have more than 1 face, which is, again, slightly terrifying. And we know they're terrifying not only because of these descriptions, but because every time angels rock up in the Bible, they often have to say, "Do not be afraid," when they talk to anyone. There's even an example of someone fainting when they saw an angel. That's how scary they were. Imagine how terrified Mary must have been when this angel appeared to start with.
So next, Gabriel chats to Mary and says to her that she has been favoured by God and that she is going to conceive and give birth to God's son, Jesus.
Hang on a second. So 2,000 years ago, the average age that people would get married, especially girls, would be about 14, maybe 15 years old. So odds are, Mary at this point, being a virgin, not having had any children before, not being married before, she was probably like 14. That's very different to today. Today I think like the average age to get married is your late 20s and the average age to have a baby is like in your 30s. Often when we see nativities we think it's cute that little girls are dressed up as Mary, but actually she's probably not a million miles off the age that you might be right now. But actually I think what is most incredible is that Mary in her context 2,000 years ago in Judeo-Roman times wouldn't have been that valuable. People would have just seen her as someone who needed to get married to have any worth in her life. And yet God chose her. He said that she was favoured. He wanted her to be involved in his plan. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so Mary is engaged to Joseph And then all of a sudden, Joseph finds out that Mary is pregnant, but it's definitely not his.
Not ideal. Even more not ideal is that 2,000 years ago, if you had sex outside marriage, especially if you were a girl, that was a massive no-no. In fact, you'd be shamed, you'd be outcast from your community if they found out about it. In fact, it was expected of Joseph, and it was in his right to break off that marriage and make it really public, to make everyone know what Mary might have done outside of wedlock. But he didn't. He decided he wanted to be a good person. He wanted to value Mary, and he decided to break things off quietly. It just goes to show that Joseph was actually a pretty good guy.
But God intervenes. You see, Joseph has a dream, and that an angel approaches him. And basically, this angel is there to explain everything that's happened, because as you can imagine, Joseph is a little bit confused right now. And basically what happens, they say that Mary is still a virgin, but she is carrying the Son of God, Jesus. Wow, that's incredible. So Joseph takes Mary as his wife, but they choose to not sleep together until they are married. Mary is now super heavily pregnant. The emperor has decided that there's going to be a census taken for the whole of the Roman Empire. So today's censuses are actually super easy. You just get a paper and a pen and you write it and usually post it off. But 2,000 years ago, this really was not the case.
So, Mary and Joseph start their journey to Bethlehem.
This would not have been an easy journey. You couldn't just call an Uber and get a lift there, and it was like a 90-mile journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Imagine travelling here from like Sutton to Northampton. It's a bit of a trek. And not only that, not only did they not get an Uber, they also probably didn't travel on a donkey. The Bible doesn't mention a donkey, and in fact, about 2,000 years ago, donkeys would have been a very big commodity. It would have been really expensive to have a donkey to take you anywhere. In fact, Joseph was a carpenter. It's not like he had loads of money to chuck around spending on a donkey. Most likely, they walked. Imagine being heavily pregnant and trying to walk 90 miles. It's not like they had nice footpaths they could walk on or anything like that. It would have been rocky, dusty, dirty. It would have been a really difficult and long journey.
So, Mary and Joseph arrive in Bethlehem. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you'd agree that I just want to book into the nicest 5-star hotel that there was after a journey like that, especially being heavily pregnant. But actually what happened is that there was absolutely no room for Mary and Joseph to stay once they got to Bethlehem.
And now the Bible doesn't say if this because there wasn't enough space anywhere. It doesn't specify. You see, I'm sure if you've seen the Nativity before, whether that's in a school play or on the telly, you remember that there's an innkeeper, and the innkeeper has to go, no, there's no room in the inn. Except he doesn't exist. There's no mention of an innkeeper in the Bible. In fact, it's probably more likely that it wasn't because there was no space anywhere, but it's because nobody wanted an unmarried couple coming in pregnant to stay in their inn. They would have been outcasts, nobody would have wanted them. So they would have had to find somewhere else. The second thing to remember is that there's actually no mention of a stable in the Bible. I remember seeing lots of Christmas cards floating around and they all had stables and little nativities on, and very cute, except odds are there probably wasn't a stable. You see, the only thing that's mentioned about where Jesus was put after he was born is a manger. A manger is a feeding trough for an animal. Except 2,000 years ago, odds are that would have been in a field, not in a stable. Might have been in a cave, but most likely the place that Jesus was born was outside, in a field, just outside Bethlehem. Dirty, grimy, near where the animals are. Not pretty, not cute, not cuddly, not like we often see on Christmas cards or in nativity plays at all.
So definitely far less cute and cosy, and actually, most importantly, not child friendly at all. So, Jesus is born. This is great news. This is better than great news. This is amazing news. And in fact, the gospel, which is the Bible, is often called the good news. So what happens next is that the very first people to find out about the birth of Jesus was in fact the shepherds on the hillside.
Right, I don't know about you, but if I had amazing, great news that I wanted everyone to know about, probably shepherds wouldn't feature. Not even like top of my list, not even like halfway down my list, probably just not on my list of people to tell. Especially 2,000 years ago, shepherds weren't really trusted. They spent most of their time living outside with the sheep, so they were probably a bit odd. They probably smelt really bad. And actually, they weren't really all that welcome. Often people viewed shepherds as being untrustworthy, potentially people who would steal things. But God chooses to tell the shepherds first. And I think that's such a picture for the message of the gospel, the good news in general. God uses people who were unexpected, often unwanted, often the people who society said, you're worth this and useless. God said to them, you are worthy to hear my story and you can tell everyone about it. So he sends an angel and the shepherds hear first about this good news. And they run through the streets, shouting and screaming and sharing this amazing thing that had happened to everyone who'd be willing to listen to them.
So next what happened, the shepherds left absolutely rejoicing. They felt on top of the world. They were the first people that found out about baby Jesus being born. So they went and told absolutely everyone they knew. And back in those days, there was no Instagram, there was no social media, so they couldn't just post it. They had to go and tell everyone. So Mary starts settling in to her brand new life with her new baby, who so happens to be Jesus, the Messiah. And Jesus would have done all of the normal things that babies do. I think we all know that they cry, they sleep a lot, or sometimes they don't sleep a lot, and they poop a lot too. Jesus would have done all of those things. Now, one particular night, far away in the eastern lands, there were a group of really well-trained stargazers. Basically, what they would do is just look up at the stars, and if they saw something that thought, this is actually going to lead us to something really special, really important. And that actually is what happened. They saw a star and they thought, hey, something really important has happened or is happening right now. So as you do, they followed it.
So what again is amazing, not only did God choose the shepherds, the smelly, the outcasts, to share in telling his story, he also chose these wise men. And they didn't even live in the same country as Jesus was born in. God was saying to everyone, look, this good news, this story, this gospel, it's not just for people who live in Israel right now. It's not just for my people, the Israelites. It's for everyone. It's good news for everyone. As a Christian, this reminds me that the story of Jesus, what he did in his life, isn't just good news for me, not just good news for people like me, but it's good news for everyone. Not just the wealthy, not just those who are doing well in life, but it's good news for everyone.
So the wise men bought some wonderful, really special gifts just because they knew how important this moment was. And they weren't just any old gifts that they found on their way, they were so special and so significant. And in fact, those three gifts, which we talked about earlier on in the quiz, gold, frankincense and myrrh, were all to do with what was going forward and who Jesus was going to grow up to become.
For me, as a Christian, the Christmas story isn't just a nice story. I believe it really happened just over 2,000 years ago. And I believe that this is an amazing reminder of what God's message is all about, what the Bible is all about. You see, hearing about Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, the wise men, they're all people you wouldn't expect. They're young, they're poor, they're outcasts, they're downtrodden. They don't even come from the same country. They're people that you'd never expect God to choose to share the birth of a king. You'd expect a palace or something amazing like that, but that's not what God did. Because the message of the Bible is one for hope and of joy, and it's good news, not just for us, but for everyone who hears that story. And being able to share that at Christmas, I think, is so powerful. And it reminds me that Christmas isn't just about me, myself and I, and about how many gifts I can get, but actually about sharing good news with everyone else.
Amazing. So loads of churches around the country like to share and to seek the good news that God has given us at Christmas time. And some of you might be thinking of carol concerts or going to see the Nativity in primary school or even Christmas fairs. But actually, practically, churches put so much time and effort during Christmas time to help those in need. Maybe to those that are homeless, those that are lonely, those that may not be able to afford a Christmas dinner or be able to give each other presents. That's what churches do to help others to be able to share that good news. That's the important part of Christmas. That's what it means for Christians. So now we're going to hear from a few of our friends of Sutton Schoolswork about what Christmas means to them.
Christmas is so important to me this year because in a world that's constantly changing and where the security that we feel is often shaken, the Christmas story is an anchor. It's a reminder of hope when we're feeling bleak and lost and miserable. And it's a promise too that better things are coming. Jesus is born. God is with us. He's not going to leave us no matter what our circumstances. And that's great news.
What does Christmas mean to me? Well, Christmas is that time of year where we get together, don't we? And we celebrate and we share. We gather together, and every family has their own little traditions, the way they do it each year. Ours is no different. We have our opening up of presents from stockings that we've discovered at the foot of beds. We go to church. We gather around the dinner table and have as many people as we can. We listen to the Queen's speech, and then we open up our presents, and we may then watch a film or something or play some games. We've all got our own traditions, but for me, Christmas is about that time of being together and sharing and watching, listening, remembering. Christmas is very special because at that time of year we reflect on who we are and what we've got, and we're encouraged to be thankful. But also Christmas is that time that we remember that story. And however you recall or see that story or believe it happened, what we celebrate is the fact that a poor young couple in a little hovel in a back street of a forgotten town gave birth to a little baby boy who went on to change the course of history, and some would claim went on to change the course of time. So as I look around at my dinner table, as I look around my family, as I look around at my friends, as I listen and I laugh and I share and I remember, I'm reminded of that couple and that baby. And not only do I recognise that he changed the course of history, he changed the course of my life as well. And for that, at each Christmas, I'm incredibly grateful. So that's what Christmas means to me. I'm just so grateful.
2020 has been tough and my faith has been shaken, but I have held on to the hope of God. At Christmas, we celebrate that hope. Jesus being born as a human baby, stepping into the mess and fear of this world, the mess and fear of a stable 2,000 years ago, and the mess and fear of this world in 2020. With Jesus' birth, everything changes, and we do not need to be afraid. Emmanuel is one of the names for Jesus, and it means God is with us. And it is that I'm holding on to this year. God is with us in the mess.
So just like our friends have said, and I'm sure other Christians would agree, Christmas is such a time of hope, and it's remembering what God has given us, Jesus. And actually the message itself is one of saying God is with us, and especially more so in a time like 2020 when things are really different. That is so important to remember.
Definitely. So to bring our session to an end, we've got a few questions for you. And you can either use the worksheet or you can just pause the video, have a think about it. If you're with people, chat to them about it. If you're not, if you're on your own, whatever it is, you write them down, have a think about it and enjoy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for journeying with us through the Christmas story, through Christmas Unwrapped. We hope you've learned something new.
Amazing. And we hope you have the most wonderful Christmas, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021.
Yeah.
Cool. Take care.